You wouldn't steal a podcast. All this and more coming up on This Week in Retro.
High-resolution color graphics.
This land of high technology. The revolution in technology that made the information age possible.
Those kids are not afraid of computers.
Anti-Piracy Piracy.
What a time to be alive.
Weren't writers Antisocial enough already? All this and more coming up on this week's show.
Up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.
Good morning, everyone. Good happy Saturday to our listeners. Hello, twirlers. I'm Dave. I realised we never introduced ourselves, so if you're listening to us,
that's true.
You know who people are. So I'm Dave, and I'm pointing at Chris now, and I'm also pointing at Jason. And behind Jason is a cat sneaking up on him.
Have we all
That'll be
got
Bailey,
cats?
yes, retro office assistant.
We've all got cats. How are you today, Jason?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited that at long last I get to be Chris's replacement on the three-man. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Hi, Chris.
Hi. No, that's okay because I'm Dave's replacement, I think, and Dave's Neil's replacement. I think
that's right.
I think that's what we worked out.
But I'm definitely still Chris's replacement.
Yes,
we can all agree on that. All right, good.
Yeah,
definitely.
Because it's a lot of pressure to replace Neil. I'm glad that I'm not the one replacing Neil. We've agreed on that.
Yeah. And you've got a set behind you now. You've spent some time. The last time it was a wobbly green screen. This time it is a copy of Worms. Is that Hired Guns beside it?
No, that's Reach for the Stars. That's an old strategy title.
I
reached onto the shelves and threw some things up because it was better than the junk I usually keep on top of this bookcase. So thought I'd put in a little bit of effort. Got a poster from Madison Shakespeare. Got a collection of Infocom titles back there. Just a few things from around the house.
And is that McCoy in the calendar?
Yeah, that's the May Star Trek calendar. See if that makes the cropping here.
Welcome back to This Week in Retro. This is the first post-Neil show, and these will be your hosts going forward, I believe. Have you had a good week, Chris?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's only Monday. That's when we record, so it's been great since last Monday. Yeah. What about yourself,
Have you
Dave?
done anything?
Oh, yes. I've been practicing Mortal Kombat 2 mostly because I did genuinely sign up to that freaking... In fact, by the time our listeners are listening, I would have actually finished the tournament at our local barcade, so Palace Arcade in Northbridge, because 10th of May is when that happens, and I'm so bad at Mortal Kombat. So I'm just concentrating on one character. I took the time to message the owner of the bar and say, what are the rules? Are you guys going to pick the characters or can I choose my own? And he just laughed and said, yeah, you can play as whoever you want. So I'm just picking one character, trying to master it, and I'll see how far I get. I'm not saying, oh no, I can say now because they won't hear it. And yes, Liu Kang. Has to be Liu Kang. It's the easiest to master. Yeah.
Fair enough. I like watching Mortal Kombat 2. I think it's got a real edge to it that Street Fighter 2 doesn't, but I'm never very good at it.
No.
Have you done anything retro related this week, Jason?
Yeah, my main contribution, a colleague stopped me in the hallway recently and said, Jason, do you still do stuff with the Commodore 64? I said, of course I do. And she connected me via email with her son, who he and his dad were trying to fix up an old VIC-20 and Commodore 64. So he's like, I've got it down to this and this and this, but this seems to be failing. Do you know what the issue might be and what the replacement is? And I'm like, well, in fact, take a look at these two things. So did a little consulting on repair work for the C64 this week. I think that's kind of my big win.
And are they working?
Yeah, they're up and running.
Fantastic.
Just at her retirement party, and her husband that was there as well. And he was like, yeah, we got that up and running. And I'm like, great, watch This Week in Retro next week because I'm going to be on again. And he said, okay, we will. So.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm glad you got your C64 and your VIC-20 running. Loads and loads of games to play on the C64. Such a huge library. I've done nothing this week. I've been busy. Time has just rushed by. I haven't done anything retro at all. I've been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, which isn't in any way retro, I guess, unless you think about its roots. But yeah, I haven't at all. But we're going to go on with the show now, shall we?
Let's do it.
Our mateys, welcome aboard another scandalous episode of This Week in Retro, the only podcast where the Jolly Roger flies high over the high-speed seas of the internet. I be your Captain Dave Beard, scourge of the Silicon Seas, and today we be diving deep into the dark coves of software piracy. Aye, the kind that doesn't come with cannonballs, but with cracked keys and wear sights hidden in the fog of the darknet. So batten down your firewalls, hoist up your BBS, and prepare to sail through tales of shady torrents, disk copy battles, and the eternal question, be it theft or be it rebellion against the corporate crown. And I'm going to have a sore throat all day, I think, now.
I don't think you're going to be able to do a matinee and an evening show with that.
Or maybe not. Today we're going to talk about hypocrisy, because hypocrisy is fun. In this week's top submission, and it's from Squelch 411, and it's a Sky News article about the infamous anti-piracy advert that's been so heavily parodied over the years. You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a handbag. You wouldn't steal a television. You wouldn't steal a movie. You must have seen this. And you would have seen it maybe in the parodies. But if you went to the cinema to see a movie between 2004 and 2008, roughly, or you bought a DVD, in fact, you might have done what I did and sat down to watch a DVD that you'd paid for with your own money and had this unskippable anti-piracy advert. Among other adverts that they force you to watch once they had your money. This advert was further parodied in popular culture. The UK sitcom, the IT Crowd, had a right good go at it. Futurama had a go too. There's hundreds of parodies. And then years later, remember NFTs? Remember they were a thing? NFTs, if anyone still remembers them, we had people saying you wouldn't screenshot an NFT. The internet will tell you that the music on this advert is pirated. But as is often the case, the internet is wrong. It turns out the news outlets got the wrong end of the stick, and we're talking about a completely different commercial, not this massively famous one. The music in this infamous one is not pirated. Duncan actually asked him to add a torrent freak article that debunks the whole the music is pirated thing, because I thought it was true as well until I did a bit of looking into this. But the good news is, though, for hypocrisy lovers, is that the anti-piracy advert does actually seem to include piracy. And I'm delighted because I find the advert insulting and offensive. Sky News say, Blue Sky user Rib extracted the fonts used in one of the campaign's old PDFs and discovered the pirated font X-Band Rough was used instead of Mr. Van Rossum's license font FF Confidential. So X-Band Rough is a pirated copy font of the original FF Confidential. So what would happen is people would copy the fonts into a new font, call it something else, and distribute that something else freely. You would download a great big pack of fonts to use when creating things. You may not have known that you were using pirated fonts, but you were. Now, there's no reason to believe that the anti-piracy campaign knew they were using a pirated font, but also they didn't check, and they didn't have checks in place to make sure that all the fonts they were using came from legitimate sources, not just a random grab bag of fonts they found on the internet. Now, I do understand, and I agree, that artists, creators, authors, musicians, programmers, inventors, researchers, and all the other vitally important fields that are absolutely essential to our way of life. For them, copyright exists, and it exists so they can make a living and so that they can create. So I'm in favour, in broad terms, of copyright, but I'm also painfully aware of how large corporations twist the screws, deceive us, and in general try to wring out every penny they can from us. So I think there's problems with copyright in general that I'd like to see fixed. So I'm not unsympathetic to piracy. And of course, as a teenager, I was a prolific pirate. Jason, what t-shirt's that you're wearing?
This is the Fairlight release of Alternate Reality: The Dungeon on the C64. It was a remastered edition. I've been championing getting the alternate reality games for the 64 cracked and preserved because they had crazy deep copy protection. And I did eventually convince Bacchus of Fairlight to take it on. So he did the city and then the dungeon, and they sent me this nice t-shirt.
Lovely. So it's not always a bad thing, piracy.
I'm in fact wearing a t-shirt celebrating piracy of a pretty retro game.
Yeah, but I cannot abide being spoken down to. And when I pay for something, I don't want a mandatory lecture about piracy. Every time I go to see the cinema, I go to the cinema to see a film, I get one of those lectures. Not quite as tone deaf and offensive as this old campaign is, I should say. So I'm delighted that even more mud is being flung at it. And yar, it should walk the plank. Chris, I think it's probably best if we don't try and explain our own unique positions on piracy again. But did you like these adverts and did you like the parodies?
No, you're right. We have been there many times. I did actually like the advert and I never felt offended by it, but you do raise a very good point in that more often than not, you'd see this particular advert at the cinema where you've paid or on a legit DVD. So you've clearly paid legitimately to see the movie. And I'd never actually thought about that before. So it's a very interesting point. I also love the parodies. Always love a parody in any form. But it does remind me, I spent some time in the 90s. I can't say too much, but in the 90s working for a PR agency of sorts. And lots of things changed hands.
What do you mean you can't say too much? What are they going to do?
Because we
had extradite you?
No, we had friends in different agencies and font packs would pass hands. Entire software suites would pass hands, and music especially. I used a certain piece of music and the client loved it, and we did it for a 3D animated intro for a symposium, and they turned around and said, this is great, can you burn this to DVD so that we can distribute it to to our sales force and that kind of thing. And that's when we turned around and said, well, no, actually, because it's from a movie and it will cost you this much, we'll try and find you something royalty free that is similar to, and that's how we had to work within those confines. But even having it for the symposium, you're meant to have a music license for that kind of thing. So did I say I chose that piece of music? No, it was somebody I knew. It wasn't me. Yeah, it was somebody I knew. Yeah, Jason, bail me out.
Yeah, I'd always thought that bootlegging, the kind of organized sales of pirated material was more damaging industry-wide than individual acts of piracy. And this campaign at least doesn't seem to do anything to address that. It's just like you say, kind of harping on something often when you'd already paid. It is sort of a broader reminder that trade agencies were real silly in a lot of ways. Even before digital, just over home recording, things got very, very pearl clutchy. But hey, we can all laugh about it, and intellectual property issues are all completely solved.
Yeah. The one that gets me is the whole they seem to have spent a good decade from the early 90s until I guess 15 years, I suppose, from the early 90s to about 2005, just trying to win this argument that software piracy is theft. And just anyone looking at it saying, well, no, because you're not taking something and taking it away. You're copying it. And I don't know why they kept pursuing that advert, because they never won that argument, because they never won the argument. I think it lost them lost the argument overall that we're trying to make. In any case, though, Sky News contacted the original font creator. And he said, I had known about the illegal clone of my font before, but I didn't know it was the one used in this campaign. The campaign has always had the wrong tone, which to me explains the level of fun that has been had at his expense. The irony of having it used a pirated font is just precious. So I think the author has got it right. He's just delighted. We are sponsored this week, thank you very much, by Pixel Addict Magazine. Pixel Addict Magazine. Jason, what's Pixel Addict Magazine?
Oh, it's going to be at addict.media, and it's one of the best-selling classic computer magazines, I can tell you that.
And on the cover this month, the 6-week month, is the start of Origins. Neil said it was Wing Commander. For me, it's Ultima 6. Talking about chip tunes, there's a lovely chip in the top left there. Jason, I think you know what that chip is.
Oh, yeah, that's a 6581 SID.
Yeah. SID's a lovely thing. Adam Koralik chats about the Sega Pluto and Sega Neptune prototypes. We covered the Neptune fairly recently. There's a review of X-Out Resurfaced and Alpha Protocol 2. Loads more in there. You've not said anything, Chris. Say something.
I still buy the magazines from the local newsagent. How's that?
Yeah. It's lovely to get something in your hand that way.
Mm. This next story, actually, I don't know why I'm telling you about it, to be honest, because you've probably already watched it. It's a video by Ahoy, and it's already had 848,000 views, and I think around 500,000 of those were within the first 3 days. It was shared with us by Squelch411, and it's simply called 2000. Ahoy is always worth a watch, but this video, starting right from the thumbnail featuring the number 2000 in the PlayStation 2 style lettering, is that a pirated font? Anyway, on a black background, and it's just on another level. It's 21 minutes, 48 seconds long roller coaster of nostalgia and emotion. About a year that many in our age group, at least, wouldn't actually yet see as retro, but it was 25 years ago after all. In the video, Ahoy takes us masterfully through the console wars that led up to the year, and the games released that year for things like the N64, PlayStation, Dreamcast, etc. He even touches on how PC gaming seemed to falter in this period, with the set specifications of consoles being easier to target for developers. And as the thumbnail suggests, he crescendos with the launch of the PS2, as well as looking forward to how Microsoft planned to respond in 2001. And throughout this masterpiece, if you listen carefully, you'll hear instrumental covers of chart music from the year 2000 in the background as well. The year 2000 was a good one for me. I was fortunate enough to play the PS2 nearly 3 months before its release at ECTS, European Computer Trade Show, in London that year with my mate Nick. In 2000, ECTS was trade only. It was a trade-only show, but I had a contact at a CG duplication house, and she got me an invite. So Nick and I had the most amazing time doing things like playing Ridge Racer on the PS2 before they'd even finished the texture map animations for the car wheels. They were literally static. For us, seeing and playing with the PS2 before the public was the main draw card, and it blew our minds that we were there doing just that. We even played with the iToy motion camera, and that didn't get released until 2003. It really was a peek behind the curtain and something I'll never forget. November 2000 was when my pre-order PS2 arrived at my doorstep, and that was the day of my twin boy's first birthday party. And I remember it got delivered, and I remember putting the bag of goodies behind the armchair very dutifully, ignoring it so that I could pay attention to this birthday party. Until finally my wife looked at me and said the magic words, "Go on then, open it up." So, guys, gaming memories, or computer memories if you want, from the year 2000. And is Ahoy right about PC gaming stumbling in this period? Jason?
Yeah, I think you can cherry pick failures in any 12-month span you'd want to look at. And I know we're trying not to spoil too many of the games that are mentioned there, but it is true. Like he does name check some games that you could call like art house favorites, but with poor box office from that period, and one of the most infamous flops in all of PC gaming. But that game in question is still nowhere near as influential as Shenmue. This article also has This Week in Shenmue content for those of you who have been looking for a reload on that.
I love this video. Remembering the past is often foggy and vague. I feel as if you try and remember it through this slab of jelly and you can't quite see it or feel it right. And then something like a hot javelin cuts right through it. And that's what this video did. So Ahoy's video here was perfect for doing that. And I think it was down to the music. It appeared on my YouTube feed right away. I happened to be sitting down. I quite often sit through in the living room, and I'll turn on YouTube and my feed will deliver something to me. And it delivered this Ahoy video just shortly after release. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And the music was what did it for me. The music in this was what took me back to it. And I asked Ahoy at the time, I had it in my head that it was Amiga tracker music. That's what I decided this was, because having listened to Ravi from the Retro Hour podcast doing DJ sets with Amiga mod tunes, there was tracker music for every kind of dancey pop song that came out around this time for the Amiga, turned into an Amiga mod, and I thought that's what Ahoy had done. He grabbed these. So I asked him, is this Amiga tracker music? Where'd you get the music from? And he just said, nah, I just knocked them up in Reason. It turns out Reason is a music creating software. So he just made all these things in Reason, which is ridiculous. As for the PC struggling, I feel as if that article's been written every year since 1995 that the PC is struggling. And yeah, there are times when it doesn't do so well. And the advantage of the console is you have this monolithic architecture. You know exactly what you're gunning for. You can put a console game in, and if it's been well developed, it'll be just how it should be. Whereas the PC, you've got all these different graphics cards. But the PC went on and it's still going well, still going great. Although I will say for RPGs, things went down the action route and we ended up with console ports.
When you say RPGs and I think of 2000, though, I think of Baldur's Gate 2, and that was the start of a decade-long fixation for me. I mean, that was a time when I didn't really have a ton that was super, super exciting me in gaming. I was casually reviewing games for Maximum PC Magazine, whatever they told me to cover. I wasn't really getting especially attached, and Baldur's Gate 2 was one of those games, and it really changed things for me over literally the course of the next 10 years.
Baldur's Gate, I didn't play it so much at the time. It took me maybe 3 or 4 years later to play it. But the appeal of Baldur's Gate for me is it's one of the first games to do the whole, in my kind of 12-year-old mind, in the late 80s kind of thing, of what a D&D campaign should be, starting out at low level and ending up challenging the gods in it, as you did in Baldur's Gate 2 eventually. And it was the only game that took me all the way through there. Dungeon Master, my favourite Atari ST game, was one single dungeon. And okay, you did fight a dragon at the end of it. Spoilers. You did fight a dragon at the end of it, and you did start off relatively new, but it wasn't the same campaign that Baldur's Gate 2 had. Baldur's Gate 2 was absolutely magical, and I go back every now and then and play it, and usually don't finish it, and usually want to start again with a different character build. And in fact, I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 now, which is a quite different game, but it's still very good. But yeah, the demise of PC gaming has been correctly predicted 30 times out of 0. The gaming memories for me, though, in the year 2000 were mostly in text. I discovered MUDs, multi-user dungeons or multi-user domains, when I was shown one at school in the 80s. And then many years later, in the 90s, when I got an internet connection, I ran up a huge phone bill playing them. And then some years later still, around the millennium, my time was taken up working in a supermarket night shift, going out clubbing, and then playing MUDs, and that was all I did. MUDs were, and I guess are, because I'll never play one again, online text adventures with an RPG in them as well. Played with by maybe a handful of players, anywhere up to hundreds of players. So they were what came before EverQuest and Ultima Online and World of Warcraft and all those things, and EVE Online. And I was chronically addicted to them, to the point where I needed to go cold turkey to stop playing them. They ended up being 16 hours a day type thing. And if I wasn't at work or I wasn't going out drinking, I was playing these. So that was my addiction in the 2000s. Great times, wonderful memories, absolutely fantastic playing them, but I think very unhealthy to play them. And it took me a few years to come off of those to go on to single-player games again, like Baldur's Gate 2, fantastic. The console side of things, though, in the year 2000, I wasn't interested in consoles, just had no interest at all. I guess text-based online MUDs are probably the furthest away from consoles that you would get in terms of gaming.
Nah, that's cool. It's good. We've all got a different view. And like I said, Ahoy's video really brought us back to what actually happened in that year. Such a good video. I've purposely not mentioned the games Ahoy details in the video, as if you're one of the 3 people that haven't seen it yet, you might want to go and watch it, and we'd love you to go and watch it and support the people that actually, generate the content that we make stories from. What I will say is Perfect Dark was a standout N64 title for me that year. It's so much better than GoldenEye, and it just takes everything to the next level in every single way, and that does get touched on in this video. I've also found a show diary of ECTS 2000 on Eurogamer.net, so I'll put that in the show notes too, just so in case you're interested in what was at the show that year. So thank you, Ahoy, for such an awesome video, and thanks, Squelch, for sharing it with us. But also, thanks, Diane, my CD duplication contact, for getting me into ECTS. I attended ECTS 3 years running, and because I was now on the mailing list, and they eventually opened it up, some of it up to the public, and some of it was still trade only. But in 2000, that was trade only, and that was the best year for me. What a time to be alive indeed.
I'd like to welcome 3 new patrons. So thank you very much to Kaney. I'm not sure if that's been how you pronounce it. Please do correct me. Chappers97 and Neil. Who's Neil? It's Neil, the previous host. Still doesn't feel real like he's gone. Is now a patron. Thank you very much, all 3 of you. And if you'd like to join any of these 3 people and become an official twirler, go to patreon.com/thisweekinretro and you can sign up and be a twirler, and we'll talk about you next week.
Was I meant to sign up when I left? I never did. Moving on.
Yeah.
And they kept your name on the authorship list and everything. It's been you've had a quite a free ride.
That's why you were brought back, Chris, because you didn't sign up. Signing up is the only way not to come back.
Got to earn my keep.
Yeah. On to Brees now. And Imperial 109 tells us that ARM, Acorn Research Machines, it's not that anymore, is 40 and links us a registered article about it with a quote, "We thought it was a really obvious way to build a processor and everybody would be doing it." And, well, I guess they're proven right and wrong, because it must have been, given how powerful and successful it was, it should have been obvious to people, but it wasn't, because we continued with x86 and other things. Link to the registered article on that.
G7VFY has an image of a box of surplus games, all the same one, Pedro by Imagine, for the Electron, 60 copies of it, plus another 26 for the C64. Maybe he'll put them on eBay, but maybe he'll have put them on eBay by now, sorry. So there you go. What a weird collection.
Trevor Keverson links us to a Tom's Hardware article on Doom finally running on, who wrote this? The best 16-bit micro, the Atari ST. It uses clever 16-color dithering. It's not especially fast, but it is a 1985 micro running a cutting-edge 1993 game, so it's amazing it works at all.
You wrote that, Jason.
Clearly.
Trevor also linked an article for Time Extension. It's about the Japanese Game Preservation Society, who are having a rough time. They don't have enough money. Seemingly there's not enough support, and they're hoping people will join in. It's a non-profit based in Japan, and according to the article, the closest Western equivalent is the VGHF, who are in much better health. So if this is your thing, have a look at the article and perhaps support them. I think before we've touched on that there's not as big a retro scene in Japan, which is a weird thing, I think. You would think they would be a massive retro thing. I don't know.
Happy Coding gets his own back on Dave for his digs last week, but he links a friend of the show, Lee's podcast, More Fun Talking, which has Happy Coding on it. And Dave, are you appearing on that?
I'll be recording later on today for it. So it might even be out before this podcast comes out. I'm not sure when Lee will release it, but yeah, I'll be on an episode of More Fun Talking with my friend Lee. I love talking to Lee, so I'll really enjoy that.
Route 42 links a video on SID replacement, the Kung Fu SID. I've personally been very happy with the ARM SID replacement. According to Route 42's video, this seems to promise to top it. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on a Kung Fu SID.
And there is loads more on the subreddit, including one that really caught my eye, a brand new podcast called Retro Dogfight, which is about dogfight. No, it's not. It's not about dogfighting. It's about retro flight sims. Now, that's not my top genre, but I am interested in them, and I did enjoy playing them, so eventually I will give this a listen. I'll subscribe, and one day I'll listen to it. I'm delighted that this and Jason's other podcast, the Retro Adventurers, exist, because I think in retro, the shorter arcadey-style games are much easier to cover, and the complex games get passed over as a result. So when people take the brave decision to cover more in-depth game like text adventures or adventure games and flight sims, then I think I am much more interested, because there's not as much coverage of those in general as there is of other things. If you are looking for something to keep you busy while you're waiting on a bus, sitting on the train, or having a crafty log, then go to our subreddit and have a look at the article submitted there. Add a comment, upvote them, downvote them, or submit your own article. Chris, what is the subreddit? Where is it?
It's at reddit.com/r/thisweekinretro.
Well done for remembering.
Weren't writers antisocial enough already? So as we've already talked about a few times today, my all-time favorite computer was, of course, the Commodore 64, first ballot Hall of Famer for me. And I think because of the way that I felt that I kept having to trade up Amigas to stay current, or at least to be able to do what I wanted to do with it, I never got particularly attached to any one model. If I had to pick, I'd probably go Amiga 3000 just because it's the one that you could hook up to a sensible monitor out of the box and it would actually work. After my Amiga period, things got boring. I bounced around platforms a little bit, but none of the computers that I bought and used on a daily basis felt particularly special. And then the Acer Aspire 1 netbook line came out in the late 2000s, and I splashed out maybe $300. I think it was less than that for the ZG5 model, which was one of the early ones. That was the classic 8.9-inch form factor. It's easily the most pure satisfaction per dollar that I've had from a computer in the 21st century. Yes, it had the awkwardly small touchpad, and it had Windows XP SP3, which was already feeling kind of old by then. And it had a pittance of memory and hard disk space, even by the standards of the late 2000s, but I loved it. So a few years later, when Acer, kind of grew up the Aspire 1 line and they offered larger screens and higher resolutions and allegedly better performance, I was really excited and I wanted one of those too. And in 2011, I got the Acer Aspire 1 522, which had this oddball AMD C50 CPU and underwhelming performance in Windows 7 and terrible performance in Windows 10. And honestly, I've been trying to find a decent use for the thing for the past 14 years. Dr. Local, perhaps to the rescue, because Dr. Local submitted a piece from the Register by Liam Proven titled Build Your Own Antisocial Writing Rig with DOS and a $2 USB Key. And in it, the author shares a no-cost substitute for the kind of distraction-free single-purpose writing devices that pop up from time to time, like the FreeWrite, the Remarkable. It's a bootable image based on SVAR-DOS. I seem to become the alternative DOS guy. SVAR-DOS, I just learned, is the sort of the grown-up version evolution of DR-DOS. And this package by Liam Proven includes a suite of powerful DOS applications for composition, spreadsheets, and specialized writing tasks like outlining. So this image does, in fact, boot off the kind of USB key that you can get a fistful of for a few dollars. And I know because that's exactly what I did at the last Vintage Computer
Festival. What can you get for a few dollars more?
You can get all the USB keys in the surplus bins for just a few dollars more. But just or you can get a fistful of dynamite if we want to just keep going through all the spaghetti Western options. But yes, on a 4 gig drive that I got, literally I bought a cardboard box for $5 at the last VCF Midwest. I burned the image to it, plugged it into the Aspire 522, and decided to put it through its paces. So if you're concerned about this sort of thing, in light of all the piracy and anti-piracy talk we've had this week, the programs all appear to be very ethically sourced. They are freeware editions of programs like Microsoft Word 5.5 and WordStar 7. You get a choice of text editors. You get a spreadsheet. I admit I had never heard of the As Easy As spreadsheet brand, but it does appear to be pretty capable. These are not clunky old IBM XT era programs that everybody forgot about. Several of these were updated well after the release of Windows 95. And there's even Adobe's original 1.0 PDF reader for DOS. So I definitely understand why distraction-free writing environments exist. And Dave?
Just a little tangent here, but how compatible is Adobe's PDF reader for DOS with modern PDF? I'm going to assume it's not.
I have a feeling that's one of those things that depending on what kind of, standard settings are in what you output from, I will bet good money actually that if you're not burning, well, I don't know, can you burn in fonts in 1.0? Like it was the 1.0 spec.
Pirate fonts.
Well, that's the trick, right? We should be checking if those, if the you wouldn't steal a sandwich or whatever.
The reason I ask is I PDF reading is not great at times, and I'm wondering, would it be nicer to do it in DOS? No. Anyway, sorry, totally distracted.
No. But I imagine, like, if it's a straight up text document, I would be. We will follow up on that. I will follow up on whether I can burn something in Mac OS Preview and get it up and running on this.
It's a quest for you.
We will find out. So it could be a distraction-free writing environment as well as a distraction-free PDF reading environment. And I do understand, why the drive for distraction-free writing exists. When I'm on deadline, I often end up fighting the urge to spend that extra couple minutes on something frivolous, closing tabs and full screening items and doing what I can to stay on topic.
I don't think people know, Jason, that you are a writer. This is your job.
I am a writer. It is my job. And that started way back in the Amiga days. I turned writing for the online Amiga Report into budding career writing for Amiga print magazines, other print magazines back when those were a thing. And I still consider myself very lucky to be able to make a living writing words for money. So I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, so you're actually qualified to speak on what is distraction free and what's needed to be. Yeah.
And a lot of it is just personal discipline. There's, you can, if you got a house full of stuff, you can always wander off and, have a snack or, pick up a book or turn on the TV. So there's a lot of distraction to fight against for sure. Yeah. I'd rolled my eyes at the high prices of some of that dedicated gear. So the idea of having something that would run really well on a second-rate laptop from over a dozen years ago, that was really appealing. If you want to check this out for yourself, to run the setup from the provided image, you will need a PC that's new enough to boot from USB, but old enough that you can still enable legacy BIOS boot. UEFI only machines won't be able to handle it, but it still takes in many millions of computers. So I did play around with this a bit in anticipation of this story. Wasn't a keeper for me, so it will not be the final form of my still disappointing Aspire 1 522. Turns out I'm a little too reliant on modern conveniences. I like my dual monitors. I like to be able to search for answers and details whenever I want. I'm spoiled by modern tropes like proportional fonts. And I really felt the squeeze of the learning curve that's built into the assumption of something from the 80s and 90s. These are programs that were designed to have a nice thick paper manual and a keyboard overlay or a quick reference card to guide you, because they each had their own peculiar conventions, because we hadn't all kind of coalesced on the more or less the same interface metaphor that almost everything uses now. But all that said, I do like what Proven has created for us here. There is by design, there's a lack of networking support. You can do decent networking in DOS, but this USB DOS leaves it out intentionally. I guess he was trying to keep us from telnetting out to a MUD or something like that. So if you want to move things around, you're kind of consigned to sneaker netting that USB key or some other media out to the wider world. Maybe it's meant for focusing more on a novel. I could see somebody just saying I'm going to sit down and for the next 12 months, this is the machine I write my novel on. And when it's ready for the editor, I copy it off and off we go.
I think that makes sense. I think if you're doing tech writing, for example, there's no way you can do that in isolation. You'll have to continually refer to other things. And this would have been the best you could have done in DOS times, but it isn't the best you could do now. But if you're writing a novel, they talk about writer's block, and I might imagine the cure for writer's block is to sit there and refuse to get distracted. And this is what would be there. So if you're an author writing the next set of Harry Potter books or whatever it happens to be, the next budding Douglas Adams, then this might be ideal for you.
So I thought the cure for writer's block is to go and look after a hotel up in the mountains in winter. Isn't that what?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Works except when it doesn't.
Okay.
It would be really good if the cat walked in there so I could say, here's Johnny.
That would have been so good.
I work for a company where things need to be really secure and locked down, which means there's no chance of me being distracted by anything serious at work other than a news website or Wikipedia, because everything else really is behind the corporate firewall. Apart from my phone, and I'm terrible at reaching for my phone. It's like scratching an itch. I'll reach for it and I'll have it unlocked without knowing what I'm going to do with it. And I think I've trained myself to have a poor attention span. If I think back to when I was a kid, a teenager, I could get engrossed in something for hours and hours and think about nothing else. These days, I really struggle to get into something. And I think it's because I've trained myself to have a bad attention span. Sometimes now, I will put my phone in airplane mode just to make it take a few seconds longer before checking feeds, etc., so that I realize, hang on, I'm not taking this out of airplane mode. I don't have a reason to. And if I'm going to sit down and watch some TV or a film and I want to get immersed in it, that's what I have to do. I've got an old Amstrad PCW, which is an 8-bit green screen word processing computer. And I bought it to play text adventures. There is a port of, it's called Zavum. It's a port of the Infocom engine to a PCW. And it's been used to actually make some modern retro games. And you can also play all the Infocom classics on it. So when I get some time and the guts to open up this PCW and expose the CRT that's inside it, because that's what I need to do to access the drives, I'll be able to change the belts on those, and then I'll have a lovely distraction-free green PCW to play games on.
And I just want to shout out Retro Adventures founder Ben Collier and remind him that the PCW does have graphics.
Yes, the PCW can have graphics, I suppose. It's not what it was designed to do. It was designed to do word processing, but it can do. You can play head over heels on it. Lovely graphics game. The PCW is going to be great for that when I get around to it. And in the same room, I have a spot next to it for reading. And behind me sits my record player, CD player, tape deck. So I can sit there without the phone and I can read, listen to music, I could play text adventures. And in fact, between the reading bit and the text adventure computer, I have an all-in-one touchscreen computer which is set up for reading old magazines. It's a 24-inch one, and I've got it angled like you would do a magazine, and I can flick through magazines there. So all in the idea of setting myself up for distraction, the three things. And the only problem is that if I sit down to do it, there's always adult tasks in my head saying, Dave, you really should be doing this instead, or have you sorted that out yet? And it's so difficult to do it. So I want to retire so I can get peace of mind to do all these wonderful things distraction-free.
This whole conversation reminds me of I once put, ironically, I posted this on Facebook, but it was a heartfelt sentiment. And what I put up was, if you want to get anything done, log out of Facebook. Don't just close it. Log out. And for me, I'm so guilty of the doom scroll on my phone. So the phone isn't an issue for me because I don't have the Facebook app, so only Messenger. So for a communication device, it works. But then I find myself checking email every 5 minutes instead, or Discord or whatever. So something else fits in and takes the place. But like if I'm trying to get video editing done or something like that, if I sit down at the computer, the first thing I do is check Facebook. Why? To see if somebody's liked the last thing I said and mention me in a comment. I know what I wrote, but then you have to go back and reread what you wrote to feel good about what you wrote so that you can then reply to the person that disagreed with what you wrote. And what a waste of life, seriously. Anyway, please follow our socials. But I do get the need for a distraction-free environment. Oddly enough, because I'm not paid for writing, I sometimes do hobby pieces or community pieces for some of the magazines out there. And I actually do that because that's taking the place of something else that I should be doing, if that makes sense. Something that it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing that task right now, so I'll just knock out this piece for Pixel Addict or Amiga Addict or whatever, and that for me is replacing what I should actually be doing. So yeah, I do like the idea of a distraction-free place to do stuff. For me, it wouldn't be writing because I like doing that anyway, but just to concentrate on the task at hand and get it done. But going back to like the DOS-based word processors, do they still feel like a bit like messing about in HTML? Because I seem to remember to get the formatting, you had to like tag, like if you want bold and all of that. So that would become a new distraction for me. I would just be messing about with formatting tags rather than concentrating on the actual copy.
Yeah, around the time of the DOS word processors, Windows 3.11 came out, or Windows 3 and then Windows 3.1 and then Windows 3.11 came out, and they had this new Microsoft Works or Microsoft Word, and the whole thing talked about was WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG this and WYSIWYG that, and that was the buzzword that was talked about. That's not mentioned now. WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. And the idea with that was it got away from this DOS stuff with all these codes and monospaced letters to the word that Jason said earlier on that I've now forgotten.
Proportional fonts, yeah.
There we are, proportional fonts. And we got this WYSIWYG thing, and it was this amazing thing. I remember having a demo on my Atari ST of a WYSIWYG editor. In fact, the Atari ST was actually quite a powerful word processing and DTP platform back in the day. And it was the whole WYSIWYG thing, seeing something as it would actually show up in the printer. And that was a big deal back then. And we don't talk about it now because can you imagine doing something that isn't WYSIWYG now? Of course not.
Yeah. And yes, every Amiga and Atari ST user in the 90s would cling on to, but we have PageStream. We have PageStream. You don't need a Mac. We have PageStream. So yeah, that definitely was something we clung to in the print world. So, if you kind of need the Chris approach of, just logging out of Facebook and clearing things out, USB DOS could be a terrific cleanse project. If you want to break out of unproductive patterns, certainly provides a hiding place from LLM scraping all of our work online. It's quick and easy to check out, of course, heavily extensible. In the article, Proven provides instructions for adding to the build, furthering the cause. So let us know if you find creative escape in the warm glow of that Scion DOS screen. I would like to talk about the community question of the week, which was, quite simply, what next for This Week in Retro?
Well, let's look up the subreddit and take it out of contest mode and see what has ended up being the top. Loads of comments already on it. So, disable contest mode. The top answer I'll take is from our friend Richard Shears. Hello, Rich. He says, more of the same. The format is perfect. The guests bring variety. The stories are different, as are the weeks, which prevent the show becoming stale. It's my favourite thing to watch. It's that for a very good reason. Duncan does an amazing job. Dave has honestly been a rock. I'm so happy Chris has returned. I'm really looking forward to Jason hopefully managing to make the pesky time zones work. And I will point out that Jason was up in basically the middle of the night to do this.
We got it worked out.
And that'll bring back the element I missed when John left, this perspective from a history that I wasn't a part of. I won't lie, I'll miss Neil, but you guys, you all make the show something special. I don't think that needs to change. Well, thank you very much, Richard. I don't want to change either. I quite like it the way it is.
And Dot Matrix Head adds guest appearances, maybe by that Neil character, maybe every week.
I don't think we're intending to have too many guests over the next few weeks. I think we want to bed things in and get things working back to normal, but we will be continuing with the guest format. There will be guests.
Yeah, good point. Antiques for Geek says, evolution, not revolution, if I may. Shows work best when they adapt to their presenter's strengths, as This Week in Retro always has. Seeing the interplay between Neil, Chris, and Dave this week brought that home. But one suggestion, I'd love for the planets to align and there finally be a live show in front of an audience. Well, it's going to be difficult. We're in 3 different countries. Now, yeah. I like your thinking, though. I like your thinking.
Yeah.
I'm sad that Neil's time on the show. Sorry, I just finished it. Well, I'm sad that Neil's time on the show as a full-time host is coming to an end. I'm reminded of the phrase, "Don't be sad it's over. Be happy that it happened." And for the future, I know we, the audience, are in very good hands. Thank you so much. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll
move on. Oh, go ahead.
We'll do rock, scissors, paper, and the winner buys 2 camp beds, and the losers fly out to the other person's house. We do a live recording there.
Brilliant.
There are global retro events. Maybe we can get ourselves booked.
Yeah.
Southern Grass 416 says more Ultima references. Yeah, there's definitely not enough. Anyone else see anything that catches their eye?
A new mug. We need a new mug with our mugs on it.
We do.
It's so true.
I'll give a shout out to It's Tomorrow Now for more bald representation, please. And then, in all seriousness, just more of the same.
Yeah, the comments from last week and so on have been great. I mean, it is sometimes difficult to do this. It's a lot of work. And when Neil told me he was leaving, it was questions of, do we continue the show? Or do we say, okay, it's been great? And then we see all the comments and it makes it so much easier to continue. So thank you so much for your kind words and support. It's been absolutely great.
I do want to pick up on one other comment. Somebody has pointed out some female retro gaming YouTubers or podcasters.
Yeah, so
we have talked about that, haven't we, Dave?
Yeah, so the thing is, I want our guests to know about the show already. So I don't want to invite someone who's not seen the show to come on and be a bit kind of lost at why we're not asking them questions about what they do. But it is a really glaring omission that we haven't had women on. And I know that if you look back to particularly in the UK. I think the UK might have been the worst for this. In the late 80s and early 90s, we chased girls out of the hobby. They were chased out of the hobby. The magazines were really offensive. When I went back to watch Rose Tinted Spectrum's episodes of Games Master, the misogyny on that was absolutely horrendous. So I've no doubt at all that the girls and then women were playing games, but I also think they weren't vocal about it and they weren't made to feel welcome. So I guess that's perhaps why there's not so many around. But when you go a bit younger than us, there's lots of them. So yeah, we do need to get some women on. So if you do qualify in that department, then perhaps reach out to us. But we'll definitely need to rectify that.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're saying is we're definitely behind it. We're not against that at all, and we'd love to have them on. And in fact, when people make this suggestion, suggest who we should be looking at. That's my question to you. Who should we be looking at? We can have a look at their stuff, maybe reach out to them, and especially if they're a listener, as Dave has said, we're all for it. Absolutely, bring it on.
Yeah, we're not looking for someone. You don't need to be an expert on the show, but if you like the show, if you watch it now and then yeah, that's enough. Just as long as you know what the show is. Other than that, though, thank you for all the questions. The question of the week for this week, though, Jason, what is it?
Question of the week, because there's no rest for us, there's no rest for you. So for episode 219, we'd like to know, what are your strongest computing or gaming memories from the year 2000? Harkening back to that Ahoy video. So yeah, what jumps out at you at a quarter century ago?
Yeah, which, if you ask me, is retro. If anyone doubts it, is retro. Yeah, especially if you compare the games now to how things are now. So that's the question of the week. Thank you very much for watching us, twirlers. We will see you next week with the same three hosts, I think. So thank you for tuning in. Yeah.
What time, Dave? What time do we record?
What time? What time record?
It's all fine.
God, I'll tell you what a great time. You can turn up 15 minutes late.
Beautiful. That sounds perfect.
In a panic. With your wife's headphones.
Yes. Is this where we wave? Yeah.
This is where we
waving. I'm waving.
We still wave.
Chris is probably waving. Yeah, he's waving.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.
This Week in Retro was presented by Chris from 005 AGIMA and Dave. It was produced by me, Duncan Styles. The podcast version of the show is available through your favourite podcaster, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. And the video version is available on the This Week in Retro YouTube channel.
Join our community subreddit at r/This Week in Retro to suggest and vote on the stories we cover on the show. If you watch This Week in Retro on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to help us reach new viewers.
If you enjoy our show and would like to support it, then please check out the link to our Patreon page in the show notes or description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for more up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.